IB Bio, Genetics Part 4, after a brief review of some concepts I presented earlier, will have its focus on sex-linked genes, genes located on the X or Y chromosome. The essential idea is the inheritance of genes follows patterns. Here's an outline of all the movies available for the genetics unit. Use this outline to find the movie you need for review. This movie is focused here. As we approach sex-linked genes, we need to remind ourselves of the sex chromosomes. A karyogram is the best place to start toward an understanding of sex-linked genes. The sex chromosomes of the person who produced this karyogram is male because he has an X and a Y chromosome. The Y chromosome is just a small chromosome, not actually shaped like a Y, keep in mind. A female has two X chromosomes and no Y. Here are two IB syllabus statements that are important foundations for understanding sex-linked genes. Distinguish sex chromosomes and autosomes. Explain how the sex chromosomes control gender by referring to the inheritance of X and Y chromosomes in humans. This pair is the sex chromosome pair. All the other pairs are autosomes. The karyotype shown here is from a male because he carries an X and a Y chromosome. Half of this man's gametes would carry the X, and the other half of his gametes would carry the Y. The X and Y are a homologous pair during meiosis, but be careful in your thinking. The X and Y do not carry the same genes. They do not carry alleles for the same genes. Some genes are present on the X chromosome while absent from the shorter Y chromosome. During meiosis in males, the X and Y act as homologs and segregate to different sperm cells. When sperm cells are ejaculated into the vagina during sexual intercourse, half the sperm carry an X and half the sperm carry a Y. Since all eggs carry an X chromosome, sex is determined by the sperm cell that arrives first and fertilizes the egg. If the zygote inherits a Y chromosome from the father, the zygote will develop into a male. If the zygote inherits an X chromosome from the father, the zygote will develop into a female. As part of my interest in doing a bit of review, here are two syllabus statements that you've seen before. Explain non-disjunction that leads to changes in chromosome number, illustrated by Down syndrome, and one other abnormality. Analyze a karyogram to diagnose Down syndrome in humans. So we can analyze a karyogram to determine if non-disjunction occurred, resulting in trisomy. As we can see in this image, trisomy 21, Down syndrome, is the result of non-disjunction. This individual is female because both of her sex chromosomes are X's. This individual has 3 chromosomes of the 21 type. 1 has come from the male sperm, and the other 2 have come in the egg that formed as a result of non-disjunction. Just to remind you that a karyogram is generated using cells collected from a fetus in a process known as amniocentesis. The cells are collected by inserting a needle into the amniotic fluid. The fetal cells are cultured into mitosis so the chromosomes become visible through condensation so that they can be arranged in pairs in a karyogram. Here's an image of chorionic Villus sampling. Instead of using a needle to withdraw amniotic fluid, a catheter is inserted into the uterus to take a tissue sample from the placenta from a layer of cells known as the chorion. Here are the IB syllabus statements for amniocentesis and chorionic Villus sampling. Describe the methods used to obtain cells for karyotype analysis. Include chorionic Villus sampling and amniocentesis. State the role of chorionic Villus sampling and amniocentesis. This is the role. Describe the risks associated with chorionic Villus sampling and amniocentesis. You may want to review amniocentesis and chorionic Villus sampling. The next slide describes the risks with both. The health risks of chorionic Villus sampling and amniocentesis are: for amniocentesis, there is a risk of miscarriage. The The risk is 1 in 300 to 1 in 500 pregnancies. Needle injury, infection, infection transmission. For chorionic villus sampling, there is a risk of miscarriage, but it's lower, 1 in 100, than that of amniocentesis. There's also a risk of infection. Let's move on to look at X-linked genes. Here are the IB syllabus statements. Some genetic diseases are sex-linked. The pattern of inheritance is different with sex-linked genes due to their location on sex chromosomes. Define sex linkage. Sex linkage is the phenotypic expression of an allele located on either the X or the Y chromosome. Thus, sex linkage is related to the sex of the individual. Sex-linked inheritance is in contrast to the inheritance of traits on autosomes, where both sexes have the same probability of inheritance. The person responsible for our understanding of sex-linked genes is Thomas Morgan, whose lab studied the fruit fly, Drosophila melanogaster. While working with Drosophila, a white-eyed male appeared among normally red-eye flies. No one had seen a white-eye fly before, and no one knew anything about the heredity pattern of the white allele. Morgan was curious and got to work crossing flies to find out. Morgan crossed the white-eye male fly with a pure breeding red-eyed female. Now you should already know what the genotype of a pure breeding adult might be. As well, you know this movie is about sex-linked genes, not genes on autosomes, so you can already guess that Morgan's white-eye fly was going to provide some clues on sex linkage. The cross between the pure breeding red-eye female and the white-eye male resulted in F1 flies with red eyes. All the flies, male and female, had red eyes. Morgan assumed that the eye color gene was acting as a simple dominant recessive. But Morgan took the next step and crossed the F1 flies among themselves. Red-eye female, F1 crossed with red-eye male, and the F2s showed a 3 red, 1 white phenotypic ratio, just as you would have predicted if this were a simple dominant recessive heredity pattern. But there was something out of the ordinary. The only flies with white eyes were male. Now remember, this entire movie is about sex-linked genes, so the eye color is on the X chromosome. And let's see how this is displayed by going back to the original parents, the pure breeding red-eye female and the mutant white-eye male. The red-eye female is here, and the white-eye male is here. Notice the symbols. The female is pure breeding red-eye, and the male has the recessive white-eye allele on his only X chromosome. Because the male has only one X chromosome, he expresses whatever allele is on the X. Remember, genes are present on the X chromosome, but absent from the shorter Y chromosome. Now let's take a look at the Punnett square. The X and Y gametes of the male are here, and the female gametes here. On this side of the Punnett square, we have all males due to the Y chromosome here, and on this side, all females due to the X's joining during fertilization. You can see all of the F1 flies, male and female, are red-eye. Red-eye female, red-eye female, red-eye male, red-eye male. Morgan then mated the F1 males and females among themselves to produce the F2. Here is the F1 cross producing the F2, and in a quick glance at the Punnett square, we can see a 3 red to 1 white ratio, but only males display the white eye, and you can see why this happens. All daughters receive the red eye allele from the father, so no female can be red eye. Half the sons receive the dominant red eye allele from their mother, and the other half of the sons receive the white eye allele from their heterozygous mother. With X-linked genes, females can be heterozygous, but males cannot. Males express the single allele that they have on their one X chromosome. As a result, the recessive X-linked trait appears more often in males. Listen carefully, this is a clue when examining heredity patterns. If the trait appears more often in males than females, you have an X-linked gene. Now, if you're wondering whether females could be white-eye at all, the answer is yes, as long as the parents are heterozygous, red-eye female, mated with a white-eye male. White-eye females receive a recessive allele from dad and a recessive allele from mom. Thus, white-eye females are possible, but it's less likely because in nature, two individuals, both of whom have the recessive allele in their family, would have to meet and mate. This has low probability. Here are the relevant IB syllabus statements. Predict the genotypic and phenotypic ratios of offspring of crosses involving X-linked genes. Explain that female carriers are heterozygous for X-linked, recessive alleles. Red-green colorblindness is an X-linked recessive allele. A man and his wife both have no color vision problems, but a daughter has red-green colorblindness. The man sues his wife for divorce on the grounds of infidelity. Is the man correct in his assumption? Now you can stop the movie now, try to answer the question on your own, or you can follow along with me. First, we will establish that the dominant allele, capital B, on the X chromosome is for normal vision, and that the colorblind allele is the lowercase b, again on the X chromosome. Set up the cross, a man and his wife with no color vision problems. So both of them have the allele for normal vision on the X chromosome. Since there is a daughter with color blindness, let's assume that the mother with normal vision is heterozygous. Okay, is that all right? Now notice that every daughter receives their father's X chromosome. I've color-coded the father's alleles, the father's X and the father's Y as such. Notice that all daughters receive the father's X chromosome. Therefore, no daughter could be colorblind as all daughters receive the dominant normal vision allele from their father. As a note here, heterozygous females, seen here and here, are known as carriers of the red-green colorblind allele. Now, before leaving this slide, suppose the question was changed slightly. Suppose the mother was red-green colorblind, the father wasn't, and a red-green colorblind daughter arrived. Could the father sue for divorce? Yes. All daughters will receive the father's dominant allele for normal vision. They'll receive that from their father. No daughter would be colorblind even in this latter scenario. With the red-green colorblindness question behind us, here's what you need to know about it. Describe the inheritance of red-green colorblindness and hemophilia as examples of recessive, sex-linked alleles. State that red-green colorblindness and hemophilia are examples of recessive, sex-linked alleles. With this IB syllabus statement, deduce the genotypes and phenotypes of individuals in pedigree charts. We will use pedigrees to analyze sex linkage. In pedigrees, by convention, squares are males and circles are females. Those expressing the trait in question are shaded. Here's a pedigree following an X-linked recessive allele. Notice that only males are expressing the allele. This father must have passed the recessive allele to this daughter, who, as a carrier, passed the allele to her son. The son of this couple here, the son of this couple, did not inherit the allele from his father because he receives the Y chromosome from his father, not the X, and the red-green colorblind allele is on the X chromosome. We don't have enough information to know if this daughter is a carrier or not. Here is a pedigree following the recessive allele for hemophilia In the royal families of Europe, this is an actual pedigree. Males are squares, females are circles, and notice the high frequency of males with hemophilia. This is a clue that the allele is X-linked. All the mothers of males with hemophilia are carriers. That means that they are heterozygous. This includes Queen Victoria, it includes Alice, it includes Beatrice, it would include Victoria, Alice, Alexandra, and Irene. Remember, X-linked traits appear more frequently in males because males express the only allele they have. The heterozygous state for X-linked genes does not exist in males, so there is no masking of the recessive allele. Remember, sex-linked inheritance is in contrast to the inheritance of traits on autosomes, where both sexes have the same probability of inheritance. I've discussed red-green color blindness earlier in this movie, so I'll let you work out the genotypes of every individual in this pedigree. I will tell you that females who do not express color blindness, but have sons with color blindness, are carriers. They are heterozygous. This would include female 2, female 4, and female 6. Female 11 is homozygous recessive, having received an X chromosome with the recessive allele from each parent. And this explains why all of her sons are colorblind. All of her sons, no matter how many she had, would be colorblind. Now take note, female 8 is likely to be homozygous for normal vision. As the allele is relatively rare, she is normal and she's marrying into the family. The probability that she would carry the allele, then meet, marry, and mate with someone who has the allele in his family is unlikely. Here's a problem for you. In humans, the red-green colorblind allele is located on the X chromosome. We also know that it's recessive. A couple gives birth to non-identical twins. The father has normal vision while the mother is colorblind. The firstborn twin is a girl. What's the probability that the second child will be colorblind? Let's solve this problem together. The answer is 50% because it hinges on the gender of the child. Let's take a look. So here you can see the father with normal vision, the mother who is colorblind. Here are the gametes for the father and the gametes for the mother. Notice that all daughters have normal vision, all of them, and all sons are colorblind. The firstborn twin is a girl. She would have normal vision, although that information isn't provided. And the question is, what's the probability that the second child will be colorblind? Well, the probability hinges on whether the child would be male or female. All females have normal vision. All males have color blindness. The probability that the second child will be colorblind would be 50%. Here's another pedigree for red-green color blindness. Person T, a male, has red-green color blindness. Could person T have inherited the allele from person 7 or 6 or 4? And the answer is no. Person 7 is a male and does not pass the X chromosome to his sons. And that's the same for person 6. A male does not pass the X chromosome to his sons, and same for 4. A male would not pass the X chromosome to his sons. So from whom did person T inherit the allele? I'll let you work out the answer, but I will say that this individual could either be a carrier or could be red-green colorblind. See me if you have a question. If person T, a male, is red-green colorblind, person T inherited the allele from his mother. This mother of person T could have inherited the allele from her father. That father could have inherited the allele from his mother. It is not possible for person 5's father, number 2, to have given the allele to his son since it's on the X chromosome. The mother of person T could also have inherited the allele from her mother, who would have received it from her mother or her father. This mother of person T could have received an allele for red-green colorblindness from her father and her mother. This woman could be homozygous recessive, red-green colorblind. Here's a question about an allele on the Y chromosome. Males 2 and 14 have hairy ears. Which men in this pedigree have hairy ears? Identify each by number. I'll let you work out the problem or see me in class. For my last slide, I would like to explain an interesting story in the inheritance of coat color in cats, a gene on the X chromosome. The dominant allele produces an orange coat. The recessive allele produces a black coat. And since the gene for coat color is on the X chromosome, males with only one X chromosome can be only orange or only black. Heterozygous females are calico. They have patches of black and orange because in each cell, one of the two X chromosomes randomly condenses, becoming inactive, while the other is active, producing color, one color or the other. Just a note, the inactive X chromosome is called a Barr Body. The symbols for alleles can vary depending on the inheritance pattern. Can you deduce the heredity pattern for the symbols given below? This set of symbols would indicate dominant recessive. This set of symbols would indicate codominance. Here we have X linkage. These symbols would represent dominant and recessive, wild type, recessive. And here we can see multiple alleles, codominance, dominant recessive, dominant recessive. And that brings us to the end of IB Bio Genetics Part 4.